Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming to tonight's webinar. So tonight we're going to be discussing how to rehab for big profits and the 3 steps it's going to take to execute a successful rehab strategy. So thank you again for coming tonight, guys. Just wanted to go over a few things. So tonight we're going to be having multiple guest speakers, all from different backgrounds, but with all one common thing. They all invest in real estate and they're all super experienced and they all have used our proven system. So with that being said, if you guys, we're going to have a section for questions as the presentation goes on. So if you guys could just type it in the chat of whoever you want to ask the question to specifically, that would help. And yeah, we'll go ahead and get started. So without further ado, please allow me to introduce the founder of Nhan Lam Academy and also the founder of Fortune Homes, Mr. Nhan Lam. Nhan, are you there?
I'm here. Nicholas, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
All right, fantastic. Well, welcome tonight to our webinar on May the 12th, 2021. Tonight's going to be a super exciting night because you'll get a chance to hear from other people other than myself about how to succeed in real estate, okay? So tonight's topic is one of my favorites because this is how I personally got involved and started in real estate, was to rehab properties, aka fix and flip, okay? Fix and flip was my very first real estate deal. Since then, we've learned how to wholesale. We've learned how to invest capital into multifamily deals. We've learned how to buy and hold. We've learned how to have a construction company and finance company. So we've learned so many things along the way, but the very first thing that helped us get started was a fix and flip. And by far is one of the most rewarding ways to make money in real estate because you can see progress as it happens from a dilapidated piece of real estate and making it to today's standard and selling it for profit, okay? So let's go through the details real quick. First of all, if you're brand new, what is a rehab, all right? What is a good rehab? Well, first of all, you want to buy a physically distressed property. It could be physically distressed or it could be owner distress because of circumstance, whatever they may be. It is a distressed property that needs updates, okay? So how do you find a good rehab, or how do you identify a potential good deal? Well, look for signs of seller neglect. Look for signs of the homeowner needing cash quickly, or maybe they're in a situation where they're in pre-foreclosure, they've been behind for maybe 3 or 6 months. There's equity in the house and the bank is going to foreclose on them, but there's still equity and they don't want to lose out on the equity. So they work with someone like us to be able to buy the house quickly before the foreclosure date. Maybe they're a landlord that's been burnt out because of bad tenants, okay? Or maybe they're a bad landlord themselves. They're a slumlord, and that happens as well. Maybe it's a probate property, or homeowners going through divorce, and child custody issues and job relocation. And owner's not local. Maybe they own it for a while, they rented it out, but they're not local anymore, and they don't want to have to fly back to deal with that real estate. And just want to get rid of it, get the money out, and move on with their life. Okay. So once you find something with that meets those criteria, then you buy it at the right numbers, and then you renovate and update the home to today's standards, and then of course you sell it for profit. Okay. So this picture here is actually the house, the same exact house on the first picture when it was before renovation, the same exact house, but it looks so different once it's rehabbed and fixed up. Okay, so let me go through an example with you guys on what a good rehab looks like from a pictures perspective and also a numbers perspective. And once we're done with that, we're gonna go to our panel where you guys can ask questions personally to all those people. Okay, so here's a deal in Southeast DC, semi-detached house. You see the left picture is the before picture and the right picture is the after picture. It looks like night and day. All right, so it's a little bit of landscaping and removing a couple of trees to increase the curb appeal, and also painting the brick makes it look so much nicer. Okay, likewise with the living room. This is a conditioned house in the living room before the house is renovated. There's a lot of junk there. And then this is the same exact angle where that living room was, where we opened up the walls to have an open concept kitchen, refinish the floors and everything, okay? And then moving on to the next slide. All right, we have the kitchen in the same exact house, all right? And then same exact kitchen, all right? Taking out all the old stuff, opening up the walls to make it look bigger and nicer with nice appliances and nice cabinets and nice countertops. Same house, look at the bathroom, okay? Bathroom looks horrible. And then the same exact bathroom, we reposition everything because it doesn't make sense for the vanity to be next to the tub. It should be the toilet next to the tub and then the vanity afterwards. So we swap those two locations, and then you'll see the tiles, the new tub, the new flooring, the new mirrors. Looks very, very nice in that piece of property. Okay, so let's take a look at numbers real quick. So numbers, when we purchased this house, it was $145,000. All right. The cost to close on it was $5,000, which includes taxes and also other closing fees with the title company. The renovation cost was $75,000. We held it for 7 months between renovating it and getting the right permits and also selling it during the resale period. All right. Resale costs, meaning the agent commissions and also closing costs. At the end of the day, the seller asked for subsidy of 3%. We sold it for $350,000. And once you do all the numbers, over 7 months, it was $78,000 of profit. And this was just one deal. Okay. And rarely was I ever there managing the property. We have a very good general contractor that does most of the work for us. And we're only there to manage on how to lay out how to choose what to choose on the finishes and also manage the design of the layout. And once we're done with that, they go to work. Okay, and I focus most of my time on looking for the next deal, looking for the next financing and capital to be able to do the next deal and go on from there. But we don't spend much time picking up a hammer, fixing the actual house, and we leave it to our crew that does a much better job than I would. Okay, so if you do the math over a period of 7 months, $78,000 divided by 7 months is roughly $11,000 per month. And that's just one deal, and one deal meeting very, very part-time on actually doing this particular deal. Okay. So that's what a fix and flip and a rehab looks like. Okay. So what I want to do now is I'm very excited about our next group of presenters. So just like Nicholas said earlier, if you have any questions directed to any particular panelist, maybe you can relate to them better or maybe their personal experiences, you can feel free to go ahead and put their name down. This question is for so-and-so, and I have a question for, here's the question. Or if you just want to ask a general question, then that question can go out to any of the panelists who wishes to answer, and you can get a chance to go from there, okay? But let me introduce you guys, okay? So as the panelists come on to turn on their cameras and also turn on the mic, the very first one is Mr. Kurt Morton. I've known Kurt Morton for over 10 years. He was there at the beginning when we started, and a gentleman that has great experience in fix and flip, rehabbing, and other things. Next gentleman is Mr. Anthony Davis. Mr. Anthony Davis met us just a few years ago and started with his first deal as a wholesaler, and then now has been doing fix and flip deals all over Virginia. So very excited for him as well. And then we have Miss Fabian Gachu. I tell you guys, I've known her since way at the beginning of her very first boot camp several years ago, and I'm so proud of her to finish her first couple of deals just last year. All right, so very proud of her getting that done. You'll be hearing from her as well. And then Mr. Daryl Jordan, met him several years ago as well. He's a pastor, but also a part-time investor, and I believe he's still in full-time as an IT professional, being very successful. So what I'm gonna do right now, all right, you guys get a chance to turn on your cameras. Let's go to Kurt real quick. If you guys can share real quick your background on what life was like prior to real estate and what got you started. So Kurt, turn it over to you, sir.
Okay, great. Thanks, Nhan. So I've been involved in real estate since 2006. That's when I originally got my real estate license and got my first investment property and became a landlord. That was a fun experience right before the real estate crash in 07 and 08. So that was a really good education on real estate. I took a break after that because it pretty much wiped me out for a couple of years to kind of get back on my feet. And in 2011, I took the Good Rehabbing boot camp, and that's actually where I met Nhan back in 2011, and started looking for rehab properties. So at that point, I kind of took the training and the knowledge from my network, and a lot out of that boot camp to start looking for my own rehabs and starting to do my own flips, as well as working with other investors to help them identify property to purchase and renovate and resell. So would help them through that process of property, potentially providing guidance and advice through the renovation process, and then having them sell it once it's been completed. And that's kind of where I really kind of cut my teeth with real estate. In addition to that, in 2013, I started a hard money lending business called Apogee Capital. So I've investors on their flips. So we would basically provide the capital to assist with the procurement of the property as well as the renovation of the property. So that's another aspect of my business, and I think it's very complementary to the work I was doing with those investors, with helping them fix and flip. So kind of a combination of those things has kind of led me to be a top producing real estate agent in Fairfax Realty for the past 7 years, basically since 2013. Transitioning over to really working with investors paid off for my my real estate agency business. So in that point, I've been involved in around 200 rehabs to date, and that's either properties that I've rehabbed myself, properties investors rehab, or properties that I've done money lending on. So that's kind of my background and my experience, and looking forward to talking with you guys tonight and sharing anything you want to talk about.
Awesome. Thank you, Kurt. Mr. Davis, Anthony Davis, over to you, sir. How about you? How'd you get started in real estate, and what were you doing prior to real estate?
Well, I got started with real estate originally about 2018. I bought a house in my early 20s to rent out, but I really didn't know anything about real estate. I decided to go get my real estate license first. I got my license. Then a friend of mine introduced me to actually Kurt and Nhan. I decided to go with Nhan's boot camp, and I did the wholesaling boot camp. I did the flipping boot camp, and I ended up doing better with the investment side than the actual real estate side. So, so far it's been good for me. I've done a couple deals. I finished my flip in Richmond. It's been good, so I can't really say anything bad about it, but it's a beautiful thing.
Awesome. And Anthony, what were you doing prior to real estate? Your background?
Well, I'm still actually doing it. So I'm a barber full time. I'm still at work right now. I'm a barber full time, and I'm a barber instructor. So I own a barber school, and I teach also, people how to cut.
Awesome. Good stuff. Anthony, thank you very much. All right, Faven, I'll turn it over to you. How'd you get started in real estate, and what were you doing prior to real estate?
I got started in real estate a few years ago, when I met Dan from Keller Williams, Kingstown, and Rob at the same day when they had that grid. Before it was grid, I guess it was at that meetup, and then through them I met you and I took the course. But it's been about 4 or 5 years, I think. So in the meantime, I took the course, went to graduate school, did some flips, and here we are. Did a couple of flips, actually, yeah.
All right, so just did graduate school, did a couple of flips, like it's nothing, right?
It went by.
Good stuff. Well, Faven, thank you very much for the insight. All right, Mr. Daryl Jordan, sir, how about you? What was your background prior to real estate, and how'd you get started?
Well, I actually got started first meeting you. It was about maybe 3 years ago. I was looking for a workshop speaker for one of my conferences. I was looking for someone who knew about real estate investing to lead a workshop. And as I was researching folks in North Virginia, you sparked my interest. I began to attend this particular RIA and asked you if you would come and workshop for me, lead the workshop. And you did. And you did a marvelous job, by the way. And shortly after that, I attended your rehab boot camp, and it was on from then on. I mean, you taught me everything I needed to know from that boot camp in order to do my own rehabs. A little bit of background about me. I'm the president, CEO, and owner of Prosperity One. That's my private equity company, and Home by LLC, specific to real estate. And I help people make money by creating and managing investor portfolios. I also help people buy homes who can't normally buy homes. I look for the win-win-win between my residents, my investors, and myself, and we're able to do that. My background is actually in information technology. I'm a former director of IT, and by the way, I'm full-time in real estate and ministry now. I'm no longer in the corporate world. For the last 40 years, I've spent half my time on the corporate side of IT and also on the small business side. I'm a big proponent of small business, so I've spent half my career on both sides. I am a pastor / minister. I'm also a conference speaker. I've written 2 books, and I am the husband of Kathleen Jordan for the last 43 years. I have 6 grown children. I have 8 grandchildren and counting. I have a new grandchild on the way. So that's a little bit about my background.
Wonderful. Well,
And I'm primarily concentrating on rehabs at this point. We're also beginning to hold properties as well, but we're making very good progress out of our rehabs. They're working.
wonderful. Well, sounds like you got a little bit of everything going on for you.
A little bit. Keeps me busy.
Fantastic. Okay, so for the audience who are listening on right now, if you have now that you kind of gotten to know our panelists a little bit and their background, how they got started, if there's a specific question you'd like to ask any one of them, feel free to type into the chat right now. And as the questions come in, I'll be asking them to them, so that way they can address those questions to you. But the biggest value for you is getting your questions answered, so that way you can be inspired. That way you can reduce your fear, increase your confidence, and then just take action based on the information you got tonight. Okay, but if you don't have a question, you can't say we couldn't provide it. Okay, so it's up to you to ask the question that's holding you back. If you haven't done your first deal yet, if you've done your first deal, great job. But what's holding you back from doing your next deal, your second deal, your third deal, your fourth deal, and having a long-term sustainable business, okay? So as we wait for the audience to type in questions in the chat box, I'll go ahead and ask a couple of questions here as we wait for that. So, and this can go to anyone who wants to answer, okay? So just before your very first deal, because everyone has their first deal, what was your worst fear and how did you overcome that? In fact, I'll probably turn this over to Fabian. Fabian, what was your worst fear and how'd you overcome that fear? Fabian, you're muted.
Sure.
There you go.
I guess my worst fear was just inaction, and just you get into so much information, but you get stuck, and not knowing how to connect stuff. You go to all this seminars or meetups, or you see videos and stuff, and people say, I didn't have any money. I read all these things for 6 months. And then on the 7th month, I bought a house for $600,000. Then, and you're like, wait, you had no money. And then all of a sudden you bought 600,000. Like, how do you make that jump? So not knowing that jump also kind of was, I couldn't move forward. But, after meeting a lot of people, taking your course, and then you find out there are things like hard money lenders. There are things like, you could. So, yeah, inaction and gathering a lot of information and just, I guess what is called analysis paralysis. Is that what it's called? Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Good stuff. Okay, yeah, absolutely. I mean, my background's engineering, so sometimes I overanalyze things where I shouldn't be overanalyzed, and sometimes you just got to go with it and learn along the way. There's no way you can have every answer before you start, right? You figure it along the way. All right. How about you, Anthony? What was your worst fear before your first deal, and how'd you overcome that?
Well, my worst fear before my first deal had to be the fact of getting it on the line like a fish, and then it somehow getting away from me. That was probably my biggest fear, is letting it get away. That's the biggest fear for me at that time. Also, like Fabian said, is wondering, how do you get to these certain points? How do you get the money? If there's money out here, you always hear people say, "Oh, I got hard money lenders," but what is the process? And then, is there any underlying things that we need to know about with the process? Those are my things. I'm kind of an analyst too, so I try not to overthink, but you can't help it when you're dealing with big numbers.
Oh, absolutely. Especially when you're cutting hair, you want to be perfect, right?
Absolutely.
Good stuff. All right, Mr. Jordan. How about yourself? When you first did before you did your first deal, I know you're a pastor yourself, so you minister to people, but was there any fear for you before you got into your first deal? And if so, how'd you overcome that?
Yeah, there's always concern when you do something brand new. If you haven't done it before, you can totally screw this up. You're talking big money here. You don't know what problems you're going to run into with the house. So one of the things I did was to minimize the concern is my first deal, I bought it from someone I knew. So I bought the house from somebody I knew. I took over their mortgage, and I paid them some money to be able to take the house and pay the mortgage. So that kind of minimized some of my cost. The other thing I did was I had the house thoroughly inspected. I went through the house myself to see what I can see, but I don't know everything. I had it thoroughly inspected. So I knew what the problems were. going in. And, you know, before you go into the walls, you really don't know what you're going to find anyway. So there still could be surprises, but I wanted to minimize those surprises. And for the first deal, I pretty much wanted to do it to learn from the experience. Even if I didn't make any money off of it, I didn't want to lose any money. But I ended up still making $35,000 off the deal. So I was completely happy. I learned a lot, made money off of it, and so I was ready to go. One of the things I advise people to do is to get over that risk factor, or to get over not having enough time to do it, or the fear factor. Partner with someone who's done it before. Let somebody else be your mentor, because they've done it before, and you learn through the process. Some of my investors that I partner with now, that's exactly what they do. I partner with them, they learn in the process. Like I said, I'm full-time in this, so I've got the time, and we just go from there. So those were some of the things I did to minimize the risk, minimize the concern.
Okay, awesome, awesome, good stuff. Kurt, how about you? What you do to overcome your first fear when it comes to your first deal, and whatever that was, how'd you overcome that?
Yeah, so I mean, I think things. I certainly, you know, really educated myself as much as I could leading into my first deal. You know, things like attending the boot camp, you know, reading books, reading what, you know, going through blogs, websites, you know, understanding other people's journeys and other people's experiences. And then I also had the benefit of, you know, as I was getting into this, one of the ways that I was able to gain a lot of experience was work with other people to help them kind of fulfill what they were looking to do. So, you know, work with some other investors early on, helping them do flips and do deals was a way for me to, you know, really get some knowledge in, you know, behind me, and learn about the business and kind of gain that confidence by kind of living the experience kind of through other people in a less risky way, because I was more at the periphery helping to succeed. Because I've always had that mentality of, you know, if you lift the people around you, you're going to be lifted like with them. You know, so that's that's probably the main way I kind of over that initial fear doing my first deal, was I had, you know, done deals with other people multiple times and experienced that.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much. So we have one of our attendees right now who has a question, Mr. John Dow, I believe he's from Northern Virginia. He says that the real estate market is on fire right now. And his question is, how are you finding good deals right now, as most people are asking for retail or even higher? And this question is for anyone. So anyone like to take that question?
I can take that. So yeah,
okay, Kurt, go ahead.
You're completely correct. The real estate market is really just on fire right now. It has become pretty difficult to find good deals. You know, I work with a few investors that are, you know, pretty consistently trying to make offers, and it's very difficult to get a ratified contract right now. The number one thing I recommend to everybody right now in this market is, if you want to get a profitable deal, like the kind of numbers like Nhan was going through earlier in his presentation, you have to be connecting directly with sellers, because the market is, there's so much demand in the market that any property that's being exposed to, you know, the general population of either investors or retail buyers is so much interest in that you're never going to be, it's very difficult to get a property that's to be profitable. You know, the investors that are buying properties right now, for the most part, I've seen, are very experienced. A lot of times they have their own teams, or they are using all cash, so they have the ability to, you know, complete a project for a much more competitive price than other people. And even a lot of times, with all of those advantages, they're still purchasing in a speculative nature, you know, assuming that it's going to be 5 or 10% higher than it is today. So the number one thing I'd say, get with the seller, you know, do the hard work, do your bird dogging, your marketing, you know, whatever method of connecting with sellers that you're pursuing, because that's how you're going to get a good deal right now. It's being in the living room or on the phone with a seller that hasn't talked to anybody else yet, and you're potentially make them an offer on the house that's much higher than they would have expected because the market has appreciated so much. A lot of people hear about the market, they don't necessarily equate that directly to property value. So you could probably get a decent deal that method and not to compete with everyone else out there.
Okay, great. Does anyone else want to take that question? And how are you finding good deals right now when people are asking for retail or even higher?
It is a seller's market. You just have to admit it. Times do change. It's not about the price, it's about the return. So if your model can give you the right return, it doesn't matter to me if I'm paying full price or over price, as long as I can get the return that I'm expecting. So it's about the math. That's how it is for me.
Absolutely. You're right. I mean, even though you're in a situation with multiple offers, if the number still works, the number still works.
That's right.
And sometimes.
Let me give you a plug here. It was your calculator that calculates what's a good deal. When I went to your rehab boot camp, your spreadsheet got me frustrated because almost everything I put in there did not turn out to be a good deal. I thought it was a good deal, but your spreadsheet said it was not a good deal. You remember, I came back to you several times trying to figure out what the formulas are behind here. But your spreadsheet was correct. A good deal on paper in the math, if it's a good deal, it'll come out to be a good deal. So I had to keep searching. I went through a lot of deals till I found a good deal. And the spreadsheet told me which were good deals. So if the math comes out okay, even if it's a seller's market and you have to pay full price or over price, it's about the return. So if you can still get the profit that you're looking for, I'll pay the price.
Absolutely. I completely concur with that because sometimes I can get personally, I was born and raised in New York and I can easily get impatient. I'm looking through hundreds of properties and none of my things, the numbers don't work. And I can't, is the calculator broken or what's broken, right? But it turns out I was just looking in the wrong places, right? Or maybe the properties were asking for too much and things didn't work out. So I prevented myself from a bigger problem, which is losing money, right? Which is great stuff. And I remember those days, Mr. Jordan. I know you're in IT as well, so I believe you're trying to hack my spreadsheet. Find out what all the equations were, right? And so,
No, I was trying to understand it because I need to know what is a good deal and how do I find a good deal. And eventually I learned what a good deal looks like.
Right. Yeah. And by the way, being analytical is not necessarily a bad thing. It's just applying analytics in the right fashion. In this case, it was perfect because Mr. Jordan is trying to understand how it works. So that way he can, be better at finding the deals and negotiating as such and justifying why he needs to offer properties as they are. And hopefully the seller will agree. Right. Okay. Good stuff. Anyone else want to take that question? How are you finding good deals right now in this kind of market? Okay. If not, then we do it.
I'll answer that again. I moved my market. I'm not in Northern Virginia anymore. My market is in Hampton Roads. It is in Virginia Beach, Norfolk, Chesapeake, Suffolk. That's where my market is. That's where I found the deals. So I pretty much changed my market, and I physically moved down here where my market is, so I can grow my business here.
So well, that's definitely one way. Yeah, absolutely. The DMV area is very competitive because there's just so much money up here compared to other marketplaces that you wouldn't see in other parts of the country. So it's not impossible to find a deal, but it is a little bit more difficult. We have to keep up with the competition and outcompete them. All right, let's go on to the next question here. It looks like Mr. John Dow has another question directed towards Kurt or myself. And I believe, Anthony, you can probably answer this as well because you're licensed. But what are the advantages of getting your real estate license for either wholesaling or to do fix and flip? Anthony, Kurt, you want to take those questions?
Yeah, I'll answer. One advantage is that technically, if I do a flip, I can not have to go to another real estate agent to list the house. I can also do a lot of the comps and stuff without having to use another real estate agent to do that. So I have access to the MLS. you can also have access to MLS, but there's a lot of little things like that that gives me a little bit of an edge, but it's not something that you have to have.
Okay,
I got the
wonderful.
license to learn the business. So I came in to get my license to learn the business. My intentions were not just to be a real estate agent. My intentions were to get into flipping and wholesaling.
Okay, great. Kurt, any feedback on that one as well? Any answers for that?
I mean, I think Anthony covered most of it. I think definitely gaining the experience, being able to work for yourself, so you don't have to, pay someone else to do some of the services that you can do. Getting access to MLS to be able to run comparables and look for properties. And then the only other thing I would really add would be, it is a tool that can help you expand your network potentially. As a real estate agent, you can refer business and markets to get referral fees. You can also form relationships with other real estate agents in your brokerage or in other brokerages to share upcoming properties, potentially good deals. A lot of investor deals end up selling inside of the same brokerage, kind of through through personal relationships. So that's one potential advantage of being a licensed agent and getting access to that network.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Kurt.
Can I add to that? I'm not a real estate agent. I'm not a real estate agent, but I realize the importance of having access to the MLS, access to be able to produce comps. Well, I've got a relationship with two real estate agents, one very close, where she allows me access to the MLS and to access to comps. So I don't particularly want to be a real estate agent, but I do need those tools. I realize the value of having those tools. So what some of the other investors may do is develop a relationship and have a close relationship with one agent, whereby he or she can give you access to those tools that are very valuable to us.
Absolutely. And I myself, I'm not licensed either, but I have access as a personal assistant on paper for one of the agents, and I have my own ID code and my password. I pay the $105 or so every quarter to access it, and I have access to everything that a real estate agent does, but I'm not using it to sell real estate or being a licensed agent. I'm using it to find comps, look at data, look at tax records easier, and things of that such. So so that there is an advantage to access to MLS, but not really. You don't need a license to get access to MLS. But the advantages that Kurt and Anthony have already mentioned speaks for itself, and those are some of the advantages. Okay, so great stuff. So for those who are still listening on, if you guys have a question for any one of our panelists, please feel free to continue to type into the chat. There's no dumb question, and there's not too many questions, so feel free to type in there. In the meantime, let's roll along here. Let's talk about, particularly since we're talking about on topic of fix and flip and rehabbing tonight, let's talk about contractors, all right? And each one of you guys have done a fix and flip of your own, at least one, at least two. And I'm sure you've had contractors that, or maybe had some stories that you consider to be horror stories, and you learned some lessons from there. Could you please share any experiences that you've gotten from working with contractors, what that horror story was, and what the lesson learned was? So let's start with Mr. Jordan.
I don't really have a horror story, but I pretty much operate as the project leader, and I put contractors under contract, and I usually bid out the work to at least 3 contractors, and that is a challenge. It is a challenge finding very good contractors and keeping them. I remember on my first fix and flip, I had a plumber, and the plumber did a great job and charged me very much money, but sometimes they go absent, they go missing, and I found out that the person actually got arrested because he got drunk and did something, and I've been, where's my plumber? Because I'm getting behind schedule here. It's not really a horror story, but you do need to keep track of your good contractors, and once you find a good contractor, keep them happy, keep them working.
Absolutely, great advice. Faven, how about you? Any horror stories you want to share about contractors, and also any lessons learned that you got from doing your deals?
Oh my God, the plumbers. I had this plumber who either he's saying he's with his daughter's class, his grandmother is in the hospital, he got car accident, it was just like every life event was happening to him. So I could not understand it. Everything is happening to him and only him. he comes in, he really does good work, then disappears for like 3 days because something has happened. And I'm like, why is everything happening to you? So that's somebody that I would never call again. The good ones, they come in, they work hard. It's just they do everything right. And even do things that you really haven't seen yet. So because you haven't seen, they just they don't leave it. So there are good contractors, and then there are people like that plumber. Yeah.
The plumber. It's always the plumber, right? Nothing else but the plumber.
Yeah.
So from that experience, what do you think? Do you think you've improved your vetting abilities when it comes to contractors, or what new things would you ask these contractors so that way this wouldn't happen to you again?
One is don't pay up front. Two is if you make an appointment for him to show up, I mean, you kind of give them benefit of the doubt if they're late or so. But if it happens again and again, then it's time to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you find it easier to fire people now than before?
Well, I'm better than before, but I still don't like it.
I don't think anyone ever likes firing anybody, but sometimes it's necessary because you have an obligation to your own business to make sure it's successful. So, absolutely. So great experience. I mean, it's these are the things that people don't think about, the little things, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to Anthony. How about you, sir? I know you've done some fix and flips in Richmond and one going on right now. So, contractors, any horror stories or lessons learned you want to share with the group here?
Yeah, not any crazy horror stories, but just me being real particular. I'm a particular person, and they just didn't do the things that I wanted them to do the way I wanted them to do it. They called a couple audibles. When I say audibles, that means they chose to do it their way versus the way that it should have been done. That was my biggest thing, and then making sure, like Fabian said, sometimes they disappear because they have other jobs. So they may tell you all types of stories, but the bottom line is that they probably have another job that they're doing, and they're going to go to that job to get money. That's the bottom line. But it did put me behind schedule a little bit, but for the most part, we still got it done. When it comes to business, I continue to be serious depending on the situation.
Okay, great stuff. Kurt, how about you? Any horror stories about contractors and lessons learned for you?
Yeah, I have more than I care to remember, but kind of two that stick out to me was this one property in DC. I was representing the owner, getting ready to help him sell the property, and went for kind of a pre-listing kind of walkthrough, and I noticed that the granite countertop and cabinets looked odd in the kitchen. On further inspection, realized that they were installed crooked, and the solution that the contractor came up with was they actually put the granite countertop into the wall about 2 inches on the one side to try to even it out. And the story behind this was this investor did not use the recommended contractors that were provided to him. He ended up using a family member or a recommendation, basically a cousin or something like that to do the work. And that was the first of probably 10 or 12 different items around this house that were done completely improperly. And that decision to hire a family member to do cost them about close to $80,000 in additional cost from having to have contractors come in and fix things. Between the additional time, it took months longer to complete the task because of all the rework that had to get completed. And at the end of the day, ended up with a product that wasn't as nice as it could have been. So that decision that they made to hire a family member cost them $80,000. So that's a big one. That's probably one of the biggest kind of horror stories that I have from the years. But another one personally for me was my main contractor that I use was too busy with projects. I gave a referral from someone else, and the expectation that they were of kind of similar caliber to my main contractor. Through this conversation with the other realtor, or with the other, my other investor, and they renovated the house. It all looked pretty nice. Then when it came to the inspection, the inspector went under the house and determined that some of the floor joists were completely rotted through. And I had paid that contractor to place the subfloor in the bathroom and the kitchen, which is the areas that this rotting would occurred. And basically there was, water from the piping in the bathroom and the kitchen that over time and eventually rotted that floor joist. So I basically came to find out that because I had paid the contractor to replace the subflooring, they pulled it all up, saw that it was all the posts and the joists were all rotted, and instead of doing something about it, they just put new subflooring up of it and went around the kitchen and the bathroom. So, fixing it when all of that was turned up and open would have been relatively easy and maybe cost $1,000. Finding out about it after the fact, in the home inspection process, ended up costing me $15,000 to get that, repaired, which was much more challenging and more complicated, because I didn't want to basically ruin the kitchen and the bathroom that had just been created above it. So, good lesson on, taking a referral, but then having an expectation and not following through with my due diligence to check on the work throughout the process. So anyway, those are two horror stories I can share.
Okay, wonderful. Great experiences. All right, so we have a question from the audience. The question is, and anyone can take this, how much more does a general contractor add to the cost of the rehab rather than not having one? And also, where's a good place to find contractors to give you bids? Anyone want to take that?
Yeah, I'll take that one. A good place to find contractors are recommendations from other experienced investors, and you can go to, connect with the REIA, develop relationships with other experienced investors. And I've been pleasantly surprised at how willing they've been to share recommendations of other contractors, whether by products. Connecting with your REIA has been one of the most important things I have done. I've also been told that you can find contractors just by going to Home Depot early in the morning or go to Lowe's early in the morning when good contractors typically come out. I haven't tried that, but that's what I heard. I know I've been looking for general contractors down in the Hampton Roads area. And when I first got started, it seemed like they were adding about $30,000 to the jobs that I was doing. I typically take a depressed house and do a lot of renovation. And I found that they were, at least in my area, were adding about $30,000. So I decided to be the project leader myself for two reasons: for the cost, so that I can get better profitability. I'm full-time with this, so I can take the time to do it, but also to learn the process and also to learn what pricing should be. That was pretty important to me, particularly in the beginning. I'm getting ready to graduate from that now, but that's generally what my experience was down in the Hampton Roads area. It's probably different in North Virginia.
Okay, wonderful. So anyone else, how much do you guys think the general contractor adds to the cost of rehab, and where can you find a good contractor?
Yeah, so in my experience, generally, having a general contractor will add something like 20% to the cost of your renovation. That's basically the markup that you should expect to see, on all the work that they're going to be completing. So that's, kind of the cost perspective. From finding a good one, definitely, referrals, and then taking that referral and doing some due diligence. So, visiting properties that they're currently renovating or have just finished renovating, I would even take it a step further and ask to see, maybe like a house that has recently been finished and sold. Take a look, have them give you a copy of the home inspection that was done. I mean, that can be very enlightening to see, okay, well, was there like, a normal 5 or 10 items, or, was there 35 items that had to get, fixed because they were done wrong the first time? So, going through that process is really key to making sure that you're working with someone that is kind of do it right the first time, because the most profitable way to do it. And the other message, if you can't find a good referral, the other thing I would recommend is, as you're driving neighborhoods looking for properties, if you see like an obvious house that's being completely flipped, just walk in. I mean, right then and there, you can probably meet the general contractor. You can see the work that they're doing currently. You can kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone by going in and introducing yourself, talking to them. You can learn a lot about that contract, also what's potentially going on in that market, because connect to happening in that neighborhood.
Okay, awesome. And since we're on the topic of contractors, I wanted to let you guys know that since COVID, we actually started our own construction company that serves the DMV area as well. And we have a very good site manager and very good crew that does everything that we need to fix and flip or to build a brand new house. So you guys are looking for a good contractor with experience, and we have direct contacts and direct sourcing of materials that offsets all the lumber increases since COVID started. I mean, the biggest challenge we've had is lumber costs have skyrocketed. Plywood, what used to be $2 a sheet up in Northern Virginia, was now $6 a sheet. So, things have really skyrocketed, but we offset that with getting other things cheaper directly from the manufacturer, such as cabinets, countertops, vanities, and things of that such. So that way we could help offset some of the costs that what used to pay a year and a half ago compared to what other people are charging now, and all that stuff. So I believe we've done a really good job of that. And then we have another question coming in here. It comes from, I'm sorry, I can't pronounce the name, but the question is what would be your advice for a newbie with focus on wholesaling that's looking for the first deal? Looking to have first deal. What's your advice for a newbie? Anyone want to take that question?
Yeah, I'll take it. My advice is you can't quit, you can't give up, you can't get too frustrated to the point where you just think it's impossible. I'm living proof that it is possible, and all I did really was follow the formula that Nhan gave me, and within a few months of me being persistent, it paid off, and that's the best thing about it, is just staying persistent and consistent. Eventually, you will get your first deal.
Awesome. I appreciate that, Anthony. Anyone else want to take that question? What's your advice for a newbie getting started?
I can do that. Well, I don't do wholesaling, but in general, like Anthony said, don't give up. Sometimes it's so exhausting and it looks like that you just don't seem to get a break, but it does happen. It does work. Keep networking. Talk to people that what you want to do and what you are doing, because if people don't know what you want to do, then how can they help you? So tell people what you want to do a lot of networking, join. There are so many Facebook groups that are geared for wholesaling or rehab, just for information wise, and network, and it will happen.
Awesome. And Faven's a perfect example of that. I remember when she was yay high when she first met me. Right. And she came to me wanting to do real estate, but the biggest issue was, asking, is this really for me? And over time, if your law of association really helped out, saying, you know what, if I hang around the right people, then I have the confidence in myself to be able to do this as well. The question is who you're hanging around, right? People who are encouraging you, empowering you, or people who are dispowering you or discouraging you. Yeah. So just being part of this meetup has been, I'm assuming, has been a big, and part of this community, I should say, has been a big contributor to your success. Would you agree with that, Faven?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Awesome. Anyone else want to share anything about advice for a newbie getting started?
Well, I would just say get off the fence. I don't know very much about wholesaling. That's not the part of real estate that I really care for. But Get off the fence, get in the game, get your first deal. You're going to learn so much from the first deal. Up until then is all academic, and you're going to learn by doing it. So my encouragement is, whatever you have to do, network, find a deal, partner on a deal, because once you do one, you're going to learn so much, and then you'll be encouraged to do more. That will be my encouragement.
Perfect. And that, guys, and I can't speak enough about news. You know, everyone was new at one point. I was new about 10 years ago, and my first one scared the living daylights out of me, because as an analytical engineer, I'm always scared and very cautious, right? But after that the first one is your worst one. And once you got that first one out of the way, every deal after that becomes so much easier, because you've seen things, or you're familiar with it now because of your experience. It's the fear is caused by the lack of familiarity. But again, if you hang around people like us in this community, then you become more familiar with the terminology, familiar with the language, the discussions, and you become more confident yourself. So with that, you know, let's take that as the last question. That will be the last question for tonight, then, for time's sake. So for the panelists who have joined tonight, Mr. Morton, Mr. Davis, Ms. Gavachu, Mr. Jordan, thank you very much for participating, and your insights been greatly appreciated for this group here. And thank you very much for volunteering tonight. So with that, guys, there was a question as well. Will we be doing these events virtually or in person for the rest of this year? And to answer that question, I don't have a direct date on when we'll be doing in-person meetings again. I know 2022 is a definite, but as for 2021, we're not really sure yet. It all depends on how things are. And if there's a demand out there, especially in our Gainesville area. So if anything, the earliest we would consider in-person events will be sometime after the summer, maybe September or November or October of that time frame to do an in-person event. But we're still in a wait and see game. But honestly, I'm looking forward to doing it, because I miss seeing everyone live in person, shaking everyone's hand, giving everyone a hug, and then helping them get started in their real estate business. So for those who are brand new, looking to get started, be sure to follow our Facebook and like our page. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube videos, and it's a wealth of information there, and most information there is all free. And if you want to join our academy to learn more stuff of all these students who've learned and gotten deals done already, subscribe to our academy, so that way you can get the system that's helping them to achieve success also already by going to our website at www.nhanlamacademy.com. So with that, guys, we'll go ahead and go on to our next slide, and let you guys know that next month, we're actually going to have a whole nother free webinar on June the 9th, second Wednesday. And the topic is going to be how to build your investment dream team. And I noticed there's a typo there, so I apologize for spelling the word investment wrong. But you know what's great about this business? You don't have to be smart to succeed. What would you rather say? I am smart, or I is a millionaire, right? So I tell you guys, I love that phrase, because you don't have to be a genius. I may be an engineer, but I'm not using any of my college degree to succeed in entrepreneurship and in real estate, okay? So hopefully you guys get a chance to join. Part of talking about the dream team will be how to find lenders, how to find contractors, how to find agents, how to find attorneys and title companies. So make sure you click on the link above to register for the event. It's completely free. Refer a friend, share it to a friend. If those who are interested in real estate investing, we look forward to having them join our community, and we can work with them to get their first deal in the future as well. So with that, thank you very much for joining. Panelists, thank you again for volunteering to share your wealth of knowledge to the group today, and have a wonderful night. Take care and God bless.
Bye, everyone.